Now, lecture 3 is dealing with the Paul's very interesting letters to Corinthian Christians.
पाठ 3 पावलले कोरिन्थीका विश्वासीहरूलाई लेखेको महत्त्वपूर्ण पत्रको बारेमा हुनेछ।
It was about to completion of the school of Tyrannus, which is about 55, because school of Tyrannus started 53.
जसै टुरानसको स्कुलको 2 वर्ष पूरा हुन लागेको थियो, जुन सन् 55 हो, किनकि यो स्कुल सन् 53 मा सुरु भएको थियो।
He was in the Ephesus, right? At the time, some of the people reported some church problems here in Corinthians.
त्यो समयमा पावलले कोरिन्थीको मण्डलीमा भएका केही समस्याहरूको बारेमा खबर पाए, जुन बेला पावल एफिसीमा थिए।
Paul got really uncomfortable with those problems found in the church of Corinth.
यो कोरिन्थीहरूको मण्डलीको खबरले पावललाई धेरै नै असहज गरायो।
When the Corinthian church planted,
कोरिन्थीको मण्डली कहिले स्थापना गरिएको थियो?
During the time of his second missionary journey. Okay, his second missionary journey is what? Starting 52.
यो चाहिँ दोस्रो मिसन यात्राको क्रममा स्थापना भएको थियो, जुन दोस्रो मिसन यात्रा चाहिँ सन् 50 देखि 52 सम्म रहेको थियो।
It was about middle of that 51. I just wrote down here. In 51, so the church was planted, Corinthian church, in AD 51.
त्यसैले मैले यहाँ लेखेको छु कि कोरिन्थीको मण्डली करिब सन् 51 तिर स्थापना भएको थियो।
4 years later, which is 55, Paul got the message, okay, from the Corinthian church and the church's problems.
त्यसको 4 वर्षपछि सन् 55 मा पावलले कोरिन्थीको मण्डलीको सबै किसिमका समस्याहरूको बारेमा खबर सुने।
In other words, the church got all kinds of problems, okay, in the past 4 years since the beginning, starting AD 51 to 55.
त्यसको मतलब त्यो मण्डली स्थापना भएको समयदेखि नै विगत 4 वर्ष अर्थात् सन् 51 देखि 55 सम्म मण्डलीमा अनेक किसिमका समस्याहरू सुरु भइसकेका थिए।
That's why I have given you all the time. I've been giving you all the time the years. You should be very sensitive to those years, okay, in order to evaluate the Bible messages hidden inside of the Bible.
म तपाईहरुलाई सम्पूर्ण मितिहरू पनि दिँदैछु, किनकि बाइबलको सन्देशहरू बुझ्नको लागि तपाईहरुलाई यो सबै थाहा हुनु जरुरी छ।
Now, let me repeat. Church was planted. Corinthian church was planted in AD 51. And now, the Paul was recognized the problems of the church in AD, what year? 55. So how many years after? 4 years after.
म फेरि दोहोर्याउन चाहन्छु, कोरिन्थीको मण्डली सन् 51 मा सुरु भएको थियो अनि त्यसको 4 वर्षपछि सन् 55 मा मण्डलीमा अनेक किसिमका समस्याहरू सुरु भइसकेका थिए।
Here, so it was AD 55 while he was in Ephesus, about to finishing up the school of Tyrannus. Paul heard about the problems in Corinthian church. Okay, the Corinthian church was planted by Paul in AD 51.
यहाँ सन् 55 मा जुन समयमा पावल एफिसीमा थिए र टुरानसको स्कुलको तालिम सकिन लागेको थियो, पावलले कोरिन्थीमा भएको मण्डलीको समस्याहरूको बारेमा सुने, जुन मण्डली पावलले दोस्रो मिसन यात्राको समयमा सन् 51 तिर स्थापना गरेका थिए।
4 years after the church planting, here various church problems occurred.
मण्डली स्थापना भएको 4 वर्षपछि विभिन्न किसिमका समस्याहरू सुरु भएका थिए।
they needed Paul's help to solve those problems.
ती समस्याहरू समाधान गर्नको निम्ति तिनीहरूलाई पावलको सहायता चाहियो।
The Holy Spirit inspired Paul how to deal with these church problems.
अनि पवित्र आत्माले पावललाई यी समस्याहरू कसरी समाधान गर्ने भनी प्रेरणा दिनुभयो।
So now it's been common problems among all the churches around the world during the church time. In other words, past 2000 years.
वास्तवमा यो समस्या चाहिँ विगत 2000 वर्षको मण्डली इतिहासमा प्राय सबै मण्डलीहरूको समस्या हुन पुगेको छ।
Corinthian church problems, became the common church problems found in everywhere in the world.
अर्को अर्थमा भन्नुपर्दा कोरिन्थीको मण्डलीको समस्या चाहिँ आज विश्वभरिका मण्डलीहरूको साझा समस्या हुन पुगेको छ।
God used the Corinthian church for teaching all future churches problems.
परमेश्वरले कोरिन्थीको मण्डलीद्वारा पछि हुने सम्पूर्ण मण्डलीहरूलाई पाठ सिकाउनु भयो।
So we will find the answer all our possible church problems from the first and second Corinthians.
यसरी हामी पहिलो र दोस्रो कोरिन्थीको पत्रहरूमा अहिलेका हाम्रा मण्डलीहरूका सबै समस्याहरूको समाधान पाउन सक्छौं।
What kind of problems they had?
त्यसो भए त्यो मण्डलीको समस्याहरू के थिए त?
The first problem Paul stated was it here in 1 Corinthians chapter 1 verse 12.
पहिलो समस्या पहिलो कोरिन्थी 1 को 12 मा लेखिएको छ।
The reporter told Paul that, "Sir, now our church have 4 divisions, 4 different groups."
पावललाई खबर ल्याउनेले भनेको कुरा यो थियो कि मण्डली 4 वटा समूहमा विभाजित भएको छ।
Some of them are in favor of Paul, you.
कोही पावलको समूहमा,
some of them are in favor of Apollos, who gave them lessons, Priscilla and Aquila. But still, his influence was very strong in the church. Apollos, where he came from? Alexandria, Egypt. This man exerted very strong influences, to the Corinthian church.
कोही अपोलोसको समूहमा, अपोलोस चाहिँ प्रिस्किला र अकिलासबाट तालिम पाएका व्यक्ति थिए जो मिस्रको अलेक्जेन्ड्रियाका थिए अनि कोरिन्थीको मण्डलीमा उनको ठूलो प्रभाव थियो।
Now, some of them in favor of Peter because they learned not direct from Peter, but Peter's delegates or Peter's disciples. Because Peter has a different group from Paul.
कोही पत्रुसको समूहका थिए जसले पत्रुसबाट सिधै नभएर पत्रुसका चेलाहरूबाट सिकेका थिए अनि पत्रुस र पावलको शिक्षा अलि फरक थियो।
And some of them would say, "No, we are disciple of Jesus group."
अनि कोही चाहिँ येशूका हौं भनी येशू समूह बनाएर बसेका थिए।
That is a very common division issues found in your church.
यो आज तपाई र हाम्रो सबै मण्डलीहरूमा भएको साझा समस्या हो।
Paul said, "We are all Jesus group." Paul said, "Not my group, not Peter's, not Apollos. We are group of Jesus."
तर पावलले भन्छन् कि वास्तवमा हामी सबै येशूको समूहका मानिसहरू हौं।
Now, second problem is there are many infant Christians, baby Christians, infant. In addressed here in 1 Corinthians chapter 3 verses 1 and 3.
दोस्रो समस्या चाहिँ मण्डली भित्र धेरै बालक विश्वासीहरू थिए। पहिलो कोरिन्थी 3 को 1 देखि 3 पद।
Paul said, "I could not give you solid food, but only milk.
पावल भन्छन् कि म तिमीहरूलाई कडा खाना दिन सक्दिन किनकि तिमीहरू दूध मात्र खान सक्छौ।
Why? He said that you guys, you are here always fighting because of your jealousy. And fighting, strife means fighting all the time. See, out of jealousy, fighting. That stands for the what? Infant Christian characteristics.
उनीहरूको बीचमा डाह र झै झगडा थियो जुन बालकहरूमा हुने चरित्र हो.
Majority Christians in the church, Corinthian church, consist of infant Christians. That's why fighting and divisions.
कोरिन्थीको मण्डलीका अधिकांश विश्वासीहरू आत्मिकी बालकहरू थिए, त्यसैले उनीहरू जहिले पनि डाह र झगडा गर्थे.
And third problem he addresses that among your church members, out of that stripes and jealousy and fightings, they brought their issues to secular justice by way of lawsuit each other.
तेस्रो समस्या चाहिँ त्यो डाहा र झगडाको कारण मण्डलीका विश्वासीहरूको समस्या संसारका मानिसहरूका सामु लगेर एक अर्कामा मुद्दा चलाउने काम थियो.
Paul said, no, do not bring all church matters to the secular, so-called law society. Church leader should be a judge.
तर पावल भन्छन् कि मण्डली भित्रको समस्या संसारका मानिसहरूको अदालतमा नलैजानु, तर मण्डलीका अगुवाहरूले इन्साफ गर्नुपर्छ.
Number 4 problem is marriage advice in chapter 7 all the way to 40.
चौथो समस्या चाहिँ विवाह सम्बन्धी सुझावहरू. पहिलो कोरिन्थी 7 को 1 देखि 40 पद.
Chapter 9 is a very interesting chapter. Paul was heard very uncomfortable rumors, against him.
पहिलो कोरिन्थी 9 अध्याय चाखलाग्दो छ कि पावलले आफ्नो विरुद्धमा लगाइएका आरोपहरू सुने.
Some said that do not believe Paul, he is not the apostle.
कसैले भन्थे कि पावल प्रेरित पनि होइन, त्यसैले उसको कुरा नसुन.
He collected money out of our pocket and using that money for his own enjoyment and his own family.
अनि उसले हामीबाट पैसा लिएर आफ्नो परिवारको लागि मनपरी खर्च गर्छ.
Okay, then Paul said that, listen, I haven't received money out of your pocket. When I was in your city, Corinth, because of this, I had a double job, tent making during the daytime, along with Priscilla and Aquila. They were also tent makers. Then out of that fund, I did not receive any money out of your pocket. God knows, he said that.
अनि पावल भन्छन् कि मैले कोरिन्थीमा हुँदा प्रिस्किला र अकिलासको साथमा पाल बनाउने काम गरेर त्यसको कमाईले जीविका चलाएँ. मैले तिमीहरूबाट पैसा लिइन, जुन कुराको साक्षी परमेश्वर हुनुहुन्छ.
That's a story is in where? 1 Corinthians chapter 9.
यो कुरा पहिलो कोरिन्थी 9 अध्यायमा उल्लेख छ.
And number 6 is that some Christians worshiping idols at the same time worshiping Jesus. That is chapter 10.
अर्को समस्या चाहिँ उनीहरू मध्ये कतिले प्रभुको पनि सेवा गर्ने अनि मूर्ति पूजा पनि गर्ने गर्थे, जुन कुरा पहिलो कोरिन्थी 10 अध्यायको 1 देखि 33 पदसम्म उल्लेख छ.
Paul said this, you know Moses' story, where Israelites made a golden calf. Paul cited this stories by saying this, that some of them got killed by God. Remember, 3,000 of them. He's talking about Exodus chapter 32.
पावल यहाँ पुरानो करारको घटना स्मरण गराउन चाहन्छन् र भन्छन् कि मोसाको समयमा जब इजरायलीहरूले सुनको बाछो बनाएर पुजे, तब परमेश्वरले 3,000 मानिसहरूलाई मार्नुभयो. यो चाहिँ प्रस्थान 32 को घटना हो.
Paul quoted that story that you idol worshippers, if you do that very strongly, If you do that too much, then you will be destroyed. In other words, you will lose salvation.
अनि पावल यो कुरामा सचेत गराउन चाहन्छन् कि यदि तिमीहरूले मूर्ति पूजा गर्यौ भने तिमीहरू नष्ट हुनेछौ, अर्थात् तिमीहरूले आफ्नो मुक्ति गुमाउन सक्नेछौ।
Then also in that church, many so-called different gifts demonstrating people, all kinds of gifts. Okay, so there was this is a very well-known chapter. 1 Corinthians chapter 12 is a gift chapter.
अर्को समस्या चाहिँ पवित्र आत्माको वरदानको प्रयोग सम्बन्धमा थियो, जुन पहिलो कोरिन्थी 12 अध्याय हो।
Then you know very famous love chapter, 1 Corinthians chapter 13.
त्यसपछि अर्को प्रख्यात प्रेमको अध्याय छ, जुन पहिलो कोरिन्थी 13 अध्याय।
And chapter 14 is another very famous chapter. You see here, prophecy and speaking in tongues.
अध्याय 14 चाहिँ अगमबाणीहरू र अन्य भाषाहरूको बारेमा छ।
So Paul said, prophecy goes more important than speaking in tongue, but speaking in tongue is also advisable. But don't do that in public. When you have an interpreter, you do that in public. Otherwise, you do it in own individual way, in secret.
पावल भन्छन् कि अन्य भाषा भन्दा अगमबाणी उत्तम हो, तर अन्य भाषा पनि राम्रो हो। तर उल्था गर्ने व्यक्ति छैन भने सार्वजनिक रूपमा अन्य भाषा नबोल्नु, तर व्यक्तिगत रूपमा बोल्दा हुन्छ।
Okay, and also here he said that in verse 3 he said that there are guidelines on prophecy. That prophecy is not the telling the future things that was only remained in the Old Testament time, but in the New Testament time, prophecy is advisable under these guidelines. He said.
अनि अगमबाणीको बारेमा पावल भन्छन् कि भविष्यको कुरा बताउने चाहिँ पुरानो करारमा हुन्थ्यो, तर नयाँ करारमा चाहिँ अगमबाणीको केही शर्तहरू छन्।
Prophecy should be used for the purpose of edifying fellow Christians.
पहिलो कुरा अगमबाणी चाहिँ मण्डलीको आत्मिकी उन्नतिको निम्ति हुनुपर्छ।
So prophecy involves in teachings also is prophecies. Okay, edifying, make your brothers and sisters to grow spiritually.
बाइबलले शिक्षा सिकाउनु पनि अगमबाणी अन्तर्गत पर्छ, किनकि त्यसले विश्वासीहरूको आत्मिकी उन्नति पुर्याउँछ।
Second purpose is said to encourage your brothers and sisters.
दोस्रो कुरा चाहिँ अगमबाणीले मण्डलीमा एक अर्कालाई उत्साह दिनुपर्छ।
And third condition was written by Paul said that to make comfort them, comfort.
तेस्रो कुरा चाहिँ मण्डलीमा एक अर्कालाई सान्त्वनाको निम्ति अगमबाणी प्रयोग गरिनुपर्छ।
Okay, now let me repeat again. What is the first is edifying. Second is encouraging and comforting.
फेरि दोहोर्याउन चाहन्छु कि अगमबाणीको उद्देश्य चाहिँ पहिलो आत्मिकी उन्नति, दोस्रो मण्डलीको उत्साह र तेस्रो मण्डलीको सान्त्वना हो।
And chapter 15 is very famous about the resurrection issues. So entire chapter 15 dealing with resurrection issues, where we always use the chapter 15 resurrection information when we deal with the issue of resurrection.
पहिलो कोरिन्थी 15 अध्याय पुरै नै पुनरुत्थानको विषयमा छ, अनि जब हामी पुनरुत्थानको विषयमा कुरा गर्छौं तब यो 15 अध्यायमा जान्छौं।
Some of the church people denied Paul's apostleship. So Paul argued and defended his apostleship in the entire chapter, Second Corinthians chapter 11, entire chapter.
अनि कति मानिसहरूले पावलको प्रेरितपनाको विरोध र शंका गरेका हुनाले दोस्रो कोरिन्थी 11 अध्याय पुरै पावल आफ्नो प्रेरितपनाको पक्षमा लेख्दछन्।
Next chapter, which is 2 Corinthians chapter 12, he said this. Because of that, to support his apostleship, Paul said this. Listen, you guys, 14 years ago, God took me up to the third heaven, he said.
उनको त्यो प्रेरितपनको पक्षमा बोल्दै दोस्रो कोरिन्थी 12 मा पावल 14 वर्ष अघि परमेश्वरले मलाई तेस्रो स्वर्गमा लानुभयो भनी लेख्छन्.
What year is that he is writing this book here? 55 here. Minus what? 14. 41.
यो समय सन् 55 हो अनि 14 वर्ष अघि भनेको चाहिँ सन् 41 मा थियो.
Where Paul was at the time?
त्यो समयमा पावल कहाँ थिए?
His hometown Tarsus.
उनको आफ्नै गाउँ टार्ससमा थिए.
He became a Christian 35.
सन् 35 मा पावल परिवर्तन भए.
3 years he was in where? Arabia.
अनि 35 देखि 38 सम्म उनी अरबमा गए.
We studied that previously. And 38 over here Arabia. Now he went to Tarsus, his hometown, Tarsus.
त्यसपछि 38 मा उनी टार्ससमा गए.
45 he went to where? Antioch church. He was invited by Barnabas, to serve Jesus.
अनि 7 वर्षको अन्त्यमा सन् 45 मा बारनाबासले उनलाई एन्टिओकियामा सेवकाईको निम्ति बोलाएर ल्याए.
14 years ago, that is, he said in 41, AD 41. So at that time, AD 41 means, Paul was where? In his hometown, Tarsus.
अनि पावल अहिले 14 वर्ष अघि भन्छन्, जुन समय सन् 41 हो, जति बेला उनी आफ्नै गाउँ टार्ससमा थिए.
As a very lonely man, without doing much, under the severe persecution from his family members and his hometown people because he changed his religion.
जहाँ उनी धर्म परिवर्तनको कारण आफ्नै मानिसहरूको सतावटमा एक्लो भएर बसेका थिए.
At the time, Jesus, in order to comfort him, took him to the third heaven, the paradise, and showed him all, future things that will be taken in his life.
उनी एकदमै एक्लो भएको समयमा सान्त्वनाको निम्ति परमेश्वरले उनलाई तेस्रो स्वर्गसम्म लानुभयो र उनको जीवनमा भविष्यमा हुने कुराहरू पनि देखाइदिनु भयो.
And when he was there, he was asking Jesus, Lord, would you help me to remove the thorn in my body here?
त्यो समयमा पावलले आफ्नो शरीरको काँडो हटाइदिनु भनी बिन्ती गरेका थिए.
Some people said he was a half blind, eye problems. We don't know exactly what physical problem he got.
उनको शरीरको काँडो के थियो भनी हामीलाई थाहा छैन, तर कसैले भन्छन् कि उनको आँखाको समस्या थियो.
At that time Jesus said what? You need that thorn in your flesh to make you humble.
तर परमेश्वरले उनलाई भन्नुभएको कुरा चाहिँ यो थियो कि तिमीलाई नम्र बनाउन त्यो तिमीलाई चाहिन्छ.
He said, the grace that I have given you is good enough. If you, want to be my servant, you need to carry those thorns, in your body to make you humble.
परमेश्वरले भन्नुभयो कि यदि तिमी मेरो सेवक हुन चाहन्छौ भने मेरो अनुग्रह तिम्रो निम्ति पर्याप्त छ अनि तिमीलाई नम्र बनाउन त्यो काँडो तिम्रो शरीरमा रहनु पर्छ.
That story is written where? In 2 Corinthians chapter 12.
यो कुरा दोस्रो कोरिन्थी 12 अध्यायमा लेखिएको छ.
So in here, this 1st and 2nd Corinthians, Paul wrote, in what year? AD 55. Where? In Ephesus. During when? third missionary journey.
यसरी पावलले पहिलो र दोस्रो कोरिन्थीको पत्र सन् 55 मा तेस्रो मिसन यात्राको समयमा एफिसीबाट लेखेका थिए।